So apparently your AI is supposed to rewrite itself now. Read your Slack, learn your voice, become you while you sip a flat white. Unfortunately, you've been missold. In this video, I'll show you what self-improving actually looks like under the hood so that you know how to approach it for the systems that you build for your clients. Let's get into it. So first things first, if you don't know what a skill is, you need to go and check my other videos on skills to understand what they are before you get into this. This will be a little bit more of an advanced concept. Second thing here, there are many ways to solve this exact problem we are talking about. This is just one way to do it. Now that that's out of the way, we can finally get into this video. So a skill in its simplest form is literally just a procedure that the AI is going to follow every single time. A workflow, standard operating procedure, whatever it is. And we do that because it saves you time, it improves the quality over time, and it's easier to iterate for the exact same work that you're going to be doing over and over again. But there comes a problem where sometimes you end up repeating yourself because you don't take the time to address the problems with your skill after you've actually built it. I have this problem all the time with several skills up until the point where I actually built the skill refinement system, particularly because they were often small things where I would just solve the problem on the fly, but I did it in the system that it was ending up in instead of just getting Claude to go and fix it. So our goal here is to stop that stupid manual pattern that a lot of people have and not just get to a point where our skills are refined, but also get to a point where we can auto-refine some of them, because I certainly believe you shouldn't be auto-refining all of them. More on that in a second. So from my point of view, skill refinement itself, it turns real-world feedback into better reusable AI behavior. That is how I'm kind of framing this whole video. So we take a rejected output over here, perhaps the wrong voice, maybe it was missing a rule, maybe it wrote a little bit too much AI slop. We're then chucking it into this evidence box, and once we've gathered all of our evidence into a box, we need to do several steps inside that box to then ultimately improve our skill. With the goal being that we want a refined, clearer, stronger behavior within inside the specific skill that we are working on. The important thing to remember here is that we are getting real feedback from real systems inside our actual working environment, and then using that to change the behavior of our skill for the next time that it runs, and therefore improve it. Something to keep in mind, evals are not refinement. They're not the same thing, even though there is some overlap. To me, evals grade the skill, so we might evaluate against known static examples of work while we are building the skill initially. We would run our evals over as many examples as we could, and it would grade it each time to see which one was better, and we might give it feedback as to what was wrong, why didn't it match our expectations, why is it not our definition of good. Skill refinement, as a comparison to me, would be something that teaches the skill over time with real-world data, like I mentioned on the previous slide. It is something that is observed through usage. The usage informs the notes create the rules, and the rules improve the skill over time. To help ground this a little bit more, we need to look at the skill lifecycle as a whole, because it really is an entire process. We don't just build something and then refine it and job done. It all starts obviously by building our skill with a very, very clear definition of done. You need to come in there at least having an understanding of what you're trying to achieve. For instance, if we're trying to write LinkedIn content out there, you're going to have an understanding of at least what type of content you want to be writing, what type of voice you might want to be using, and you would give as much information as you can to AI upfront to go and build your initial skill. Once we've done that, we would then run some evals against it where we are evaluating against the definition of done that we just created. Have we matched what we were trying to get to? After we've done that to the best of our ability, we would then use it. We would put it into real situations. Go out there and write based on X, Y, Z. Maybe write me 20 posts. After we've done that, we're going to be collecting feedback, the outcomes, the observations, any of the edge cases that might have come out from running it over so many iterations. After that, we then get into the refinement process, because now we have all of the data that we need in order to actually make these refinements and learn from the things that we had from the previous runs. Then we would re-eval that to make sure that our behaviors have stuck and that the patterns are actually better than they were the first time that we set up the skill with our initial definition of done. And then finally, as a part of this, we might want to curate this, but I'll cover curation in another video. I wanted to bring up the skill lifecycle because it is important to understand that you're not just going to be able to refine something if you've already given this thing a shitty definition of done from the minute that you started. And for those of you wondering, yes, of course, even if you don't have a complete definition of done up front, you can use AI to actually help you understand what a good definition of done is in the first place. Many ways to research this before you dive into refinement. So always make sure that you're nailing the first step of this process very well, because it means you're probably going to have to do less refinement down the line. And that brings us onto our 3-layer system. Now we'll get into a prac in just a little bit, but first we need to look at a few more slides to understand how this system works. So our 3-layer system is quite simple, and there are various intricate layers that go inside this, and I'll break them down for you. So with signal capture, we are pulling in all of the information from our outside systems. We would then have our refinement engine, which runs through various processes in order to look at all of that information and decide what it needs to do with it before it can apply any quality changes to that or any refinements. Finally, as a part of this, we would need to understand the cadence behind it. So is this thing going to run daily or weekly? Is it going to be called at the end of a session inside your VS Code environment or Claude Code? Or are you just going to have a weekly review that runs as a separate skill? There are many ways to skin this cat. You can even use hooks if you want to, but for the everyday user, hooks might not always be available. So I think for most businesses, having something like a daily or weekly review is probably the best cadence. Then next up, we can take a deeper look into the skills pipeline. When we understand what each skill is doing, it helps us understand the processes inside the system, which will make it a lot clearer for you guys. So like I said, the first skill that we want to run is our signal capture. And if we take a look at what's inside there, we have our little evidence inbox, and you can see that we're just using it to gather all of that information from our outside systems over here. Rejected drafts from something that we wrote, maybe a call transcript from some Fathom sessions that we had, which could tie in with the session notes. What were the key takeaways, the questions, the updated client information? It would all go into our evidence box, customer comments, failed evals, whatever. It lives inside here so that we can use this to sort through it and ultimately manipulate it and refine it. Next skill we have is the evidence router, and that is doing exactly what it sounds like. It is routing the evidence that we have inside our signal capture box over here. It decides the destination of where all of this information that we have in the raw format gets sent to. Because not every piece of information that comes in from a system goes directly into a skill.md. There are different things that form our skill.md. There are references, there are context files, there are memories, various things that go into our AI operating system as a whole that we might want to update. So we wouldn't just route everything to skills, and that's why we have this evidence router skill, because it can intelligently decide, based on the evidence that it's found inside that signal box, where to send it to. For instance, if it learned a behavior about the skill that ran and it was specifically related to skill.md not doing something, it would then route the behavioral chains to say, oh, hey, we need to make a change to the skill.md. If we learned some new information from some prospects that we spoke to about their company, it would say, this sounds a lot more like context. It should probably go into the context file for this specific client, so that the next runs that we have for anything related to that client, it takes into account that new context instead of living off of the old one. You get the point by now. We are routing that raw information, sorting through all of it and putting it in the right place so that later on when we get to the approval part, it knows exactly where it needs to go. Next up, we have the skill self-update, and this is proposing the skill changes. It can't just do that off a whim. Of course, it is doing this off of actual evidence. And it's why I said in the beginning that we need to have a very clear definition of done, because in this case, as a part of our workflow, we have this role of something called the judge. And what it's doing here, it's literally judging that the changes that are about to go through are actually of better quality or not. It is an AI gate in this case. In this case, just remember that the judge cannot know quality unless the skill defines what good is up front. So as a part of our skill, we have made very sure that ours has a very clear understanding of the standards that we want for whatever the skill is that we're working with. So after step 3, where we have suggested any adds or edits or things that we need to remove, we get onto step 4, where we update the context. And all of this stuff will end up in a folder called proposals. The reason that we do that is because we need a human gate as a part of this process. Like I said earlier, I don't think every single thing out there can just magically auto-refine itself, despite what a lot of people on YouTube say. There's definitely a need for a human in the loop here, and we need to take a look at why. Now, instead of thinking to yourself, what kind of skills can I have running on autopilot? It's much better to look at the gate from the perspective of what is the worst thing that can happen if the information that is auto-refined is incorrect. The blast radius, if you will, because that will help ground you when you're looking at auto-refining your skills. I see a lot of people saying, oh, I have this system where it pulls in all this information from my sales calls and automatically updates all my clients. Does that about 5 or 6 times a day. And I'm like, okay, cool. So how do you know if any of that information is actually accurate for the clients that you're serving? Because the first thing that goes to my mind when I have discussions with people, if I can see that they're talking mostly based on hype, they don't really know what their systems are doing. So for me, this comes down to these 3 M's over here, the megaphone. This is how will it impact your audience? How is it going to impact your money? And how does it impact the meaning of your systems? Because having one wrong thing in one wrong place can destroy a whole cascading set of skills that you have. For instance, if you change the context for your ICP, how many skills use that ICP in order to fulfill whatever it is that part of that workflow does? So if you had to have some form of auto refinement on your ICP and nobody's checking this thing, and the AI actually made an error in judgment, you're going to screw up every single one of the workflows that rely on that. So you need to look at this from the perspective of who is affected, what value is at stake, does this change our promise or change our direction? If the answer is yes to any of those things, I would highly recommend pausing for a second, using a system like this and literally just reading the proposed change and then pushing it through. It will take you 10 minutes and save you a ton of trouble. Great, so now that we understand the consequences of what can happen if we don't have a human in the loop, we need to find some form of cadence that works for us. For me and my cadence, I just do this thing weekly. I don't need something to run every single day, but that's just for the style of my business. You can do yours differently. So if we take a look at our options, we can either do any of these over here. The first one being manual. Now, if you were working with Claude and you were having a conversation one day and you noticed that it made a few mistakes, you could literally just say at the time, hey, I don't want this mistake to happen again. Review our skill, take everything that we've spoken about in here and update our skill so it never happens again. That's the easiest way to do it, and often that's the best way to do it because you're right there. You can just re-see the output and then run it through some evals again to make sure it doesn't happen. But then there are obviously other times this can happen. After a call is a very popular one. At a session end, so again, when I close this, that is a session end, a hook would then fire and it could update a whole bunch of things. You could also manipulate any of the hooks that happen in between the sessions that you have in VS Code or Claude Code. There are many of them. I'll cover that in another video. But for most average users out there, the weekly or daily schedule is probably going to be your best bet, as well as pulling in information from other systems as they happen in real time, which you can do either via a skill or you can just use a webhook that pushes something down. However you want to make that thing work. But for the average user, the weekly or daily cadence is probably going to be the way to go. You can get it to pull information down from other systems, or you can just get those systems to push the information directly into the folders that we're about to take a look at. Cool, so here we are in my environment, and I'm going to run through it very quickly. I've just given Claude a very simple prompt to run through everything I just spoke about and then stop at certain sections so that you can see how it pans out. On the left over here, you can see we've got our evidence folder, and like I said, this is all just markdown stuff, and each of the skills that will run as a part of our refinement loop, they'll be dumping things into certain parts here. Remember, in our first instance, intake is where all of the raw events come in from our outside systems. It could be Fathom, it could be Notion, it could be Slack, any sessions that we have where we want to pull in that outside information. So I'm just going to hit enter on this, and it's going to run through the first part over here. It's going to generate some mock data for us, and it's going to throw it into the intake folder as if it has just harvested a bunch of information from our outside systems for us. Okay, so stage one is complete, and this was just generating some mock data for us. So we can see here our information is now coming from our outside systems. We have a draft for LinkedIn that was rejected, and we have an Acme procurement call from our Fathom transcripts. So the first thing here, it gives us a little bit of information around the draft of what was written, why the user rejected it. Of course, you would want to have reasons in there, giving as much information as possible when you reject something, because the clearer you are, the more the AI will understand what to learn from that. And then it tells us why this matters and how it is going to affect future LinkedIn posts. Then for our call, this is based off of a discovery call with Acme Robotics, gives us key moments from the call, and then it tells us why this matters. These are durable customer commercial facts, not one-off task notes. And that means it's going to change several skills. For instance, if they had a rule like any deal over 25K at Acme now requires procurement review, that means you're going to have to change your proposal, your statements of work, and perhaps some of the ways that you actually reach out to them in the first place. It also says that Acme now requires SOC 2 and signed DPA before production access. So that's going to change delivery and a few other things that might affect the consultants who you'll be pushing to their site to go and actually do the work. It then also lets us know that multiple skills should know this: our proposal generator, our meeting prep, and our sales closer, amongst a few other things. So capturing this raw information and distilling it where we can is very important. Next up, we have our signal capture skill. And for those of you who've been paying attention, that was the one that puts everything into our evidence box. So we've taken all of our raw data, we've run it through the signal capture, and we've now built little evidence cards to prove that the information in there is actually valid and worthwhile going through our pipeline to make a change. So for instance here, we've now moved out of intake into inbox. And if we look at our Acme procurement that we just read over, it gives us all the information that we need. Like our source system was Fathom, the signal type was a changed fact, it gives a little bit of a summary, the observed problem, and the proposed lesson that we are hoping to learn as a part of this refinement. It lists the signal that we have, and then it shows the direct evidence from the raw events over here, verbatim moments. Anything over 25K now has to go through a formal procurement review. It would have pulled that out of the transcript. Our security team requires a SOC 2 report and a signed DPA before any vendor touches production data. That's a hard gate now. Again, direct evidence from that transcript. You get the point here. We are building that evidence box before we push it further through the system. For the LinkedIn thing, it's pretty much the exact same process. The evidence here is just a user rejection verbatim about what the user might have said when they rejected this thing. You get the point. Cool, now we're at stage 3, and just to make it very clear, you wouldn't be doing all of this stuff manually stage by stage. That's ridiculous. It would be doing all of this on autopilot for you to the point where we would ultimately get to our proposals to review it, in case you guys were wondering. But for stage 3, what we have done here is our goal is to route the evidence to the specific place that it needs to end up in. So we've now gone to our inbox over here, and this skill has run, and you can see it's edited the files. So all of the same information is still in there, but it appended some stuff at the bottom, the router verdict, where this thing is going and why it's going there. It knows the destination is a skill, and it knows that the destination path is our LinkedIn content writer, specifically for references and the anti-AI writing guide, because in this case, this is where I rejected it for putting some form of AI slop in there. And its decision here was to propose, meaning there's going to be a human in the loop. And it's smart enough to know that because it's following those 3 M's that I spoke about. In this case, one change to this is a megaphone, meaning we are broadcasting something to an audience, so a human definitely needs to review this before we make a change to it. And it did the exact same thing for our Acme robotics. It told us over here exactly where it needs to go. In this case, the destination type is context, and the context, the client's name, and then acme.md, which is all of our customer information for them. For this one, the decision is also a human in the loop, because again, this is going to affect broad customer work where we might have multiple systems using this information in order to deliver services to them. In terms of what gets stashed where, you can see we now just have our rooted folder, which has the same information from our inbox for Acme procurement, which goes into context, and then our skill over here will be for LinkedIn that gets updated as well. And at this point, we haven't made any change yet, so we need to move on to the next stage. And then as a final part of this process, we obviously have our proposal, which has our judge in it. It goes through this information that we have already looked at, and it puts it into a proposal for us before we go ahead and make this change as our final gate. It tells us the type of the change. In the case of our LinkedIn writer, we are adding a very specific rule. The reasoning behind it is because the rejected draft shows the writer reaching for the let that sink in AI slop. As a part of it being a judge, it also gives us a confidence score, and then we have the diff to see what is actually going to change. So if we were reading this as the human in the loop, we would be able to see the change. And if we were doing this through GitHub, it would obviously use a pull request for this that you would review as a pull request and then accept the change, and it would go through just like a code review. And that's it. I realize it can get quite convoluted, but it is the framework behind this that is so important to understand. There are many different things that you can manipulate as a part of the system, and you certainly can do different forms of this. Hermes does this quite well, obviously, but I have a problem with Hermes in that it creates skills for nearly everything when that's absolutely not necessary. For me, I prefer a constraint-based approach, meaning I only build a skill when I have a business need or a problem that arises, and I know that the work is going to be repeated, not just a one-off thing, and then all of a sudden an agent goes and spawns something that will just die inside my skill folder and never get used. I also think that if you use this kind of loop inside your business or you're setting this up for your clients, it's a much better way to do it because it gives them the confidence to know that their systems aren't just being filled with information that they might not know is entirely accurate, because most people out there don't know how these systems work and they're being misled by products like Hermes that will auto-update everything for you, and YouTube is claiming that it is just a magic solution when in reality it's not. It will still make mistakes. Problems can still happen, but people aren't thinking about that because they aren't aware that they need to be looking at this stuff, which is why, as automated as we can make this entire process in the video, we certainly need to have some point of a human gate. So I hope this video was helpful. Leave some comments down below. If you have any questions, I will get back to you. Otherwise, check out the videos on the screen now. They'll definitely help you in your journey. Thanks very much for watching. See you guys later.